Hello loyal subjects, how are you today? Today I am here to show you my top 14 of 2014. Now, these are the cream of the crop, the best 14 novels that I read this year. My one rule is that I can't have more than one book from the same series. Otherwise, you'd be seeing a whole lot of Percy Jackson up here. Okay, so just so you know, this is in no particular order. First, I have Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I did not expect to like this book as much as I did. I read this in preparation to see the movie, which I also thoroughly enjoyed. I never saw myself enjoying a crime thriller, psychological fucker-upper book as much as I enjoyed this book, so that was a very pleasant surprise, and it was cool to broaden my horizons of my reading a little bit. Next, I have Horns by Joe Hill. Again, I don't read a whole lot of, I guess you would call this horror, kind of paranormal, supernatural kind of thing. But I also read this in preparation to see the movie, which still hasn't come out in Australia yet. But it was just so good. I so loved this book a lot, and I am definitely wanting to get into this genre a bit more, particularly by picking up Mr. Hill's father's novels, Stephen King. Next, I have Monsters of Men. This is the third book in the Chaos Walking trilogy. I read all of the books this year, and I think this is my favourite. Pretty sure. This book, as I may have told you before, holds the record of being the only book that I have ever cried in. So there is that. This whole series was just so emotional from page 1, and then the ending of this book, by the end I was just like... So if that doesn't convince you to read it, I don't know what will. Again, I don't think I've ever read sci-fi really before, which is stupid because I love that genre. Space, aliens, it's awesome. Next, I have a book that I was highly anticipating this year, and that is The Iron Child by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Magisterium series, and I need the next book, like right now. I did not expect to like this book as much as I did. Obviously, I had high expectations going into it because it's by two of my favourite authors, but I don't know, I was just really pleasantly surprised by it and by how hooked I am on this series. Like I said, Copper Gauntlet, where are you? I need you, please. So if you haven't picked up this book yet, you need to get on that. You're gonna want to be on this bandwagon from the start, I can guarantee you that. Next up, I have The Coldest Girl in Coldtown by Holly Black. I really wanted to make a review of this book after I'd read it, but I hadn't started a channel yet, and by then it was like too long. Maybe someday when I reread it. Because I will, because this is a really awesome book that everyone should go pick up. This was my first Holly Black book, and it just blew me away. This is vampires done right. It was gory, it was dark, it was romantic, it was action-packed. It was everything you could want in a standalone paranormal fantasy thing and more. Honestly, I would not be opposed to a sequel or a novella or something. Next up, I have The Giver by Lois Lowry. I read the entire series this year, and The Giver was definitely my favourite one. I had never read the book before because in Australia it's not that popular, or at least I hadn't heard of it until BookTube, and literally everyone was like, I had to read this book for class, and I ended up really liking it. Whoa! But yes, classic dystopian awesomeness. I really enjoyed the movie as well, but it just touched my heart in places I didn't know my heart could be touched, and the ideas and the themes and the characters were just so great. It's just such a good book and it's really short, so you should all read it. Read the whole series too, because everyone talks about The Giver, but not the whole series. And I've read all of them, and I'm telling you, it's worth it to read the 4. Next up, I have another dystopian novel, and that is Insurgent by Veronica Roth. I picked up the Divergent trilogy right at the start of this year, and this one was my favourite. I'm super pumped for the movie. Oh my god. But yeah, obviously you don't need me to tell you about Divergent because everyone and their mother has read this series. Next up, I have Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire Sainz. And let me tell you something about this book. If you like wonderful characters, a great setting, and just out of and just coolness in general, you want to pick up this book. It was beautiful. I have not had the feeling of, oh my god, I want to read that book again as soon as I finished that book in a while. Not like this anyway. So if you have this book and you haven't picked it up yet, or you're wondering if it's gonna be your cup of tea, go for it. Seriously, you will not regret it. I've heard a few people say that it took them a while to get used to the writing style, but I just jumped right in and I was fine. So maybe you will be as well. Next up, I have The Princess Bride by William Goldman, original text by S. Morgenstern. Who would have thought that at the start of the year a classic would have been on my favourites list? Not me, for sure, but let me tell you right now, this is no ordinary classic. This is comedy gold, geniusness. If you have not read this book or watched the movie, either is a good medium to digest this story. I strongly suggest that you do. I have not laughed so much when reading a book in ages than when I was reading this book. I read it in a day. It was so quick and funny and romantic and action-packed and just awesome story. Storytelling at its best. Read The Princess Bride. If you're wanting to get into classics, read The Princess Bride. If you enjoy life, read The Princess Bride. Seriously, such a great book. Next up, I have another contribution by Holly Black. That woman has just had a good year with me, and that is Black Heart. This is the 3rd book in the Curse Workers trilogy, and I think it's my favourite. Not sure, I really like the first one too, and the second. But the 3rd and the 1st, oh, I don't know. Black Heart. Go on with Black Heart. This series is really underrated in my opinion, because I read these books so quickly. I'm going to explain this series for you in 2 words. Magical mafia. That is pretty much what this series is. And if that doesn't hook you, I don't know what will. Honestly, you might need to get your priorities checked. I was so intrigued and entertained by this series, and I love it so much, especially these covers. These covers are just awesome. Galanx does the best covers. They do the science fiction and fantasy masterwork covers. They do all those pretty Brandon Sanderson white book covers. They have such great covers. Read The Curse Workers. Next up, I have Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. And my pretty Barnes & Noble collector's edition, so cute. Fangirl would have been in this spot, but I read that right at the end of last year, but I still really loved this book. Seriously, if you haven't checked out a Rainbow Rowell novel yet, this might be a good place to start. Her books are just so cute and so funny and Eleanor and Park is being turned into a movie, so you might want to pick that up soon. Rainbow Rowell is writing the screenplay, so I'm expecting awesome things. I don't know if it's 100% go yet because she's still writing the script, but still, if it does get made into a film, that's gonna be so exciting. Just think of all the 80s and the romance and the cuteness and the awesomeness. But yes, Eleanor and Park definitely deserved a spot. We're coming down to the wire now. So these are my top 3 books of the year. First, I have The House of Hades by Rick Riordan. This is the 4th book in the Heroes of Olympus series. I read all of the Percy Jackson books this year, and this one was probably my favourite. I know I'm not alone here. Percy Jackson. Why did I not pick it up sooner? Because I'm an idiot. That's why. I seriously feel like this series has something to offer for everyone. But you have to read Percy Jackson and the Olympian series before you hop on to the Heroes of Olympus bandwagon. I know some people go straight to The Lost Hero, but no. No. Lightning Thief. Have to read that first. It gives you a better introduction into the world of the Greek gods and the characters, and you get to know Percy a bit more. Otherwise, I feel like if you went straight to The Lost Hero, you'd be stumbling around not knowing what's going on, and you wouldn't have as great appreciation for the situation that is happening in that book than if you had read all of the PJO books first. But yeah, I really liked The House of Hades. It had a lot of Percabeth in it, it had a lot of action, it had a lot of everything. Rick, what do you do that makes you so good? Next, I have City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare, the long-awaited 6th and final book in the Mortal Instruments series. Holy shit, this book was amazing. I think this might be my favourite in the series. It is a brick, but I read it in a day. Stayed up all night to read it, but I read it in a day. And I am proud of that accomplishment. If you have not yet picked up the Mortal Instruments series, you might want to start with the Infernal Devices if you tried City of Bones and it just wasn't for you. I have no problem with people just reading the Infernal Devices, but I feel like they're missing out on the awesomeness that is this book. I think the Shadowhunter Chronicles is a big commitment in general, but it's so worth it. I thoroughly enjoyed this novel and it definitely deserved a spot. And finally, I have The Deathly Hallows by J.K. Rowling, the 7th book in the Harry Potter series. Maybe you've heard of it. Yes, I read Harry Potter this year. I'd never read it before, and now I have, and I think this is my favourite. This or Goblet of Fire, I can't decide. Why did it take me so long to read Harry Potter, you might ask yourselves. Well, dear friends, it's just idiocy. I don't know why I didn't pick up Harry Potter sooner, but now I have. And now I feel like I am finally a qualified Potterhead. So thank the Lord for that. I just don't think people who have seen the movies but haven't read the books can appreciate the epicness, the scope of amazingness that this world possesses. Will I do a series review? Don't know, because I feel like everything I want to say about Harry Potter, all of the opinions that I have on the series has already been said. This was quite possibly my favourite book of the year. Don't know. I read a lot of awesome books this year. This was definitely the best reading year I've ever had in my life. I read the most books this year I've ever read. I read the best books this year I've ever read. I read the Divergent trilogy, and I read Holly Black, and I read Percy Jackson. I read Harry freaking Potter. What more do you need in a reader's life? And the one final category that we have for this video, favourite book to movie adaptation, because let's face it, there were so many this year, and I think it's a toss-up between The Fault in Our Stars and Mockingjay Part 1. I seriously cannot decide between the two of them. They were both amazing. But yes, that is all I have for you guys today. I will see you next time, probably with my Christmas book haul. Oh boy. Oh boy. Goodbye.